In 2012, he co-wrote Who's Counting? How Fraudsters and Bureaucrats Put Your Vote at Risk. He is a national affairs columnist for the National Review Online and a senior editor at the American Spectator, worked at the Wall Street Journal for a couple of decades. Please welcome back to the program, John Fund. John, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it.
Pleasure, Larry. Thank you.
John, well?
Well, where are we?
Yeah,
we're in a mess.
John, take it wherever you want to go. Talk to me about the strength of these lawsuits. Which one do you think can prevail? Which ones do you think can prevail? Is this a Hail Mary, or is this a very sensible, legitimate kind of thing that you think may very well turn the election to Donald Trump?
There's two issues here, the short term and the medium term. Mm-hmm. The short term is Donald Trump has to convince judges in Georgia that the election was fatally compromised. He has to do the same thing in Pennsylvania. He has to try to do the same thing in at least one other state, like Wisconsin or Nevada. And that is that's close to an inside straight in Las Vegas. Mm-hmm. It's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm. John,
are there real problems?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And in the medium term, I think before Donald Trump leaves office, he should appoint a real commission with a real budget, subpoena power, full investigative powers, and he should dare Joe Biden to cancel it or dismantle it. And we need to get to the bottom of this, because this country is now at a position where over 40% of the people think the election was not free and fair. We've got to do something about that.
What do you think about the election?
Well, I am not one of these people who thinks that Venezuelan and Cuban agents were part of a plan to alter Dominion software to throw millions of votes to Donald Trump. I've spent a lot of time in this area, and I would say, if you can get a hold of the source code with a subpoena, I'm happy to look at what you find, but I don't think you're going to find the evidence to back that up. Mm-hmm. As for the mail-in balloting, back in March and April, the left was very clever. As soon as COVID hit, they said, well, we can't have people voting at the polls. It's too dangerous. So we're going to dramatically expand mail-in voting. And by hook and by crook, emergency decrees from governors, judges who went way beyond what the law allows them to do, secretaries of state who were doing the bidding of left-wing activist groups. They altered our elections and fundamentally shifted them from an election in which most people voted at the polls to an election that most people voted by mail.
But John, that was not illegal.
Well, parts of it were actually. Mm-hmm. The Pennsylvania State Supreme Court decision, which allowed ballots to come in 3 days later and didn't require signature verification or postage, was certainly illegal and would be overturned if it reached the Supreme Court. But Larry, here's the point. The rules were so loosey-goosey and so loose that when the tsunami of votes came in, many of the election administrators, because they were faced with, in Pennsylvania they went from 4% mail-in to 60%, they turned down the dials of the signature verification machine so that the number of ballots that were rejected fell dramatically from previous elections. So who gave the authority to election administrators to abandon the safeguards we had built into the system to make sure that absentee ballots, mail-in ballots were valid? That is at best highly unethical, and at worst may have represented a complete abandonment of duty.
My guest is John Fund. He is the author of Stealing Elections, How Voter Fraud Threatens Our Democracy, co-author of Who's Counting? How Fraudsters and Bureaucrats Put Your Vote at Risk. John, I agree with you. I think the lawsuit against Pennsylvania is the strongest one. Let's assume it wins. Let's assume the Supreme Court overturns the election in Pennsylvania. Doesn't Joe Biden still have enough electoral votes to still win?
Well, the problem is the margin for Biden in Pennsylvania is now up to 170,000 votes. Mm-hmm. And there's no way those ballots that came in the 3 days after the election come close to that number. So even if the Supreme Court were to rule in that case, it would not affect the results in Pennsylvania.
John, have you heard of the theory of Lieutenant General Thomas McInerney that there's software developed by the CIA called Hammer and Scorecard, and somehow some members of the Trump team got a hold of that software and literally changed votes from Trump to Biden? Have you heard about this theory, and what's your reaction to it?
You mean the Biden people changed?
Yeah,
votes
the Biden people changed the votes from Trump to Biden.
You know, every election in the last 20 years, I've heard software stories, and I look at them, and I wait for the evidence, and I'm always told that whistleblowers will be filing affidavits with their names on it, testifying to this, and then it never happens. Now, maybe it will happen in this case, but unless you have insiders who are willing to testify that this happened, and unless you get a subpoena to get the source code from the computer company because they consider it proprietary, you're not going to prove that. We have used electronic voting machines in this country for 50 years, Larry. 50 years. Now, normally you can't really do that easily because each standing election machine is not connected to the other machines. In other words, they're not part of an internet or the cloud. Now, the allegation with the Dominion software is that somehow they were all in the cloud and they were connected. And that's how the Venezuelan election that they keep referring to 15 years ago was stolen. I don't know that to be proven. I haven't seen evidence of that. You know, the left wing used to have its own computer conspiracy theories about elections. Remember there was Diebold Systems and John Kerry versus George W. Bush?
I do.
That turned out to be a complete dry hole in 2004 when the left wing raised it. I'm willing to look at the evidence, but I need to see the evidence and I need to see names attached to it.
John Fund, we have about 45 seconds left. Finally, I interviewed a mathematician from MIT, and he argues that based on his analysis, there's no way 4 counties in Michigan could have gone to Biden. They should have gone to Trump. I'm sure you heard about this, gentleman. Your reaction?
Theories are theories, and evidence is evidence. Courts don't rule on theories. They rule on evidence. And he may have an interesting theory. I'm sure he's a smart guy. But I didn't hear evidence from him or anyone else yet, and mathematical formulas don't cut it.
Supposedly, John Fund, Einstein was told 200 scientists think you're wrong. Think your theory of relativity is wrong. He said, you only need one to prove I'm wrong. I staggered through that one, but I think you know I think you know what I was talking about, John. John Fund, thank you very much for taking the time. I appreciate it.
A pleasure.
You got it.